Welcome students, welcome to lecture number 20 where we will be continuing with module number 4 under subject Indirect Taxation. So in this module, as we know, it is input tax credit. We have already seen what is input tax credit, introduction to input tax credit under lecture number 18. We have seen the complete registration. What is the procedure for registration? Who are the persons liable, not liable for registration under lecture number 19. Today we will be dealing with the remaining part. So today we will be covering the returns under GST, furnishing of returns, first return, and revision of returns and penalty on late fee. So let us first understand what is the meaning of returns under GST. So returns means any return prescribed or otherwise required to be furnished by or under the GST Act or the rules made thereunder under section 39. So students, section 39 talks about returns under GST. Now under section 39, whatever returns are being formed, those returns have to be filed with the respective category of taxpayers. Now, return means any return. Now, there are n number of returns under GST, which we will be seeing in the succeeding slides. So, it can be any return which is prescribed in this particular section, that is section 39. So, returns is very important part under GST because only after we file the returns, the government or the GST portal will come to know what is the exact output sales or outward supplies or inward supplies, okay, made by a particular taxpayer. So detail about the input and output tax can be determined only when a taxpayer files the return. Therefore, this returns has to be furnished, okay, as given under section 39. Now let us understand section 39 in detail. Now, first of all, let us understand what are the modes of filing the returns. When I say modes of filing a return, suppose if I am a taxpayer, suppose I'm registered under GST. So the first thing is I need to file the returns, because only when I file the return, the government will come to know, will be able to determine what is my output and input liability, right? So for the government to know, I have to file returns. Now, what are the means through which I can file returns? So there are three means. Either I directly go to the GSTN portal, that is www.gst.gov.in, and file my returns. Now, as I have already shown you this particular site, www.gst.gov.in, this is a common GST site or website where you can accustom yourself to the different GST services that is given. Not only filing returns, you can also make payments, you can also do registration with the help of this particular site. So suppose if I am a taxpayer and want to file the return, simply I need to go is on this particular site and file the return. There will be return options. Next, that is, when I'm doing this, I need to do online. I need to have an internet connection in order to visit this particular site and file the returns. So the first mode is directly go to the GSTN portal, go to this particular site and file your returns by logging in your user ID and password. Next, offline utilities provided by GSTN. Now, sometimes while filing returns, you require a time period to, give your invoice wise details of your outward supplies. Okay, so for that, it may not be easy for you just to go online and fill the details invoice wise. So one more option is given to you all, that is, you can go to the GSTN same site, go to www.gst.gov.in to the same site. There is an option of downloading an offline Excel sheet of the return. So when you download that offline Excel sheet, you can even fill the sheet without having an internet connection. Once the sheet is filled, you can upload that particular sheet in this particular site with the help of internet. So first option is directly you go online, Directly you fill the details online, file the return online. Second option is go to this particular site, download the offline utility tool. Then in that tool, you are going to fill all the details offline. When you're filling the details in Excel, you do not require internet. So it means offline. You're not connected to the internet. So you fill the returns, and after filling the returns, once you want to upload those returns on the site, you need to go online. So the second mode of filing the return is offline utilities provided by GST. This is one more method by which you can file your returns. The next method is by taking the help of GST Suvidha providers. They are also called as GSPs. Now, who are GST Suvidha provider students? They are authorized, means they have got a license from the GSTN. They are authorized, okay, intermediaries. Now they are intermediaries between the business and the GSTN. So what happens many a times, if I have a very big business where the volume is very high and where I have business all across India, it becomes very tough for me to file my returns because I have to fill in so much of details, right? So I take the help of GST Suvidha providers. What does these intermediary do is they take the data from me, they take the data of outward and inward supplies from me, they file the return, they do the processing, they file the return, and they upload it on the GSTN site. So who are GST Suvidha providers? They are an intermediary between the business and the GST portal services. So what do? Is they will take the data, okay, from the taxpayer, and they will connect to the GST server, and they will file the returns on behalf of the taxpayer. This is only to ease the taxpayer, okay, to minimize the work of the taxpayer. So it totally depends on the taxpayer whether they want to take the help of GST Suvidha providers or not. If anyone in India wants to become a GST Suvidha provider, they are required to get the license from GSTN. I and you cannot become a GST Suvidha providers. If you want, we have to take a license from the GSTN after fulfilling certain criterias. Now, so GST Suvidha providers do not only give the facility of filing returns, they also can help you in generating the invoice. Okay, they also can help you in registration work. So they can help you in different works relating to GST. So they are just acting as an intermediary between the taxpayer and the GST server. Now, so these are the different modes of filing the returns. It totally depends upon the taxpayer which mode of filing return he should opt. If the volume of the business is too very less, okay, he can directly go to the site and file the return. Suppose if the volume is little more, then he can opt for offline utility, because in Excel it is very easy to punch in the data. And suppose if the volume is too very high, it becomes burden for him to file the returns, he can take the help of GST Suvidha providers. So students, did everyone understand the modes of filing returns? Yes, students? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Let us move ahead. Now, which returns? I'm telling with the help of three modes you can file returns. Now, let us understand which are the different returns under GST, which one is required to file. Okay, so let us first move with GSTR1. Now, GSTR1, this particular return, okay, is a return where a taxpayer has to give details of the outward supplies of taxable goods or services. When I say outward supplies, means sales. So in GSTR1, this is a return format. And when I say GSTR, it means GST return. R stands for return. This is goods and service tax return number 1. Okay. Now, this particular return, remember, is to be filed by every taxpayer showing the details of outward supplies made during a particular month. Okay, students. Now, when is this return to be filed? This return is to be filed monthly. Every month GSTR1 is to be filed by a registered taxpayer under GST, and in this return what details is he going to show? He is going to show the details of all the sales made by him. Okay, what is the due date of filing this return? The due date is 11th of the next month. Usually it was 10th of the next month, but from October 2018, it has changed the due date for to 11th of the next month. So for example, now June month's return, complete June month's return, that is from June 1st to June 30th, the complete June months, whatever sales I am making, I am required to report that by filing GSTR1 by 11th of July. So June month's return, the due date to be filed is 11th of July. So did everyone understand GSTR1? Yes, students? In GSTR1, you are going to file all the sales transactions made during a particular month, and the due date to file is 11th of the next month. So suppose June month's sales, you can report in the return number GSTR1 by 11th of July. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. So suppose if I have to file May month's GSTR1, can anyone tell me May month's GSTR1 up to which date can I file the return? Yes, for the month of May, if I want to file GSTR1, up to which date can I file the return? Yes, students? Students,
June month.
up to? If I want to file, as I gave you an example of June, suppose for the May month, May 1st to May 31st, whatever sales I'm making, okay, I have to report that to the government in the form of GSTR1, right? In this particular return form, I will show all my details of sales made for the month of May. But what is the due date up to which I can file GSTR1 for the month of May? Can anyone tell me? Yes, students?
June 11, ma'am.
June 11th. So up to June 11th. So it is not necessary on June 11th only I need to file. From 1st June to 11th June, anytime you can file their return. Okay. Next. GSTR2. Now GSTR2 for now is suspended. Means this return is being returned in the act. But for now, this is not in operation. Means it is not in action. So GSTR2 is details of inward supplies of taxable goods or services affected claiming the input tax credit. So see, GSTR1 was for output tax, showing entire details of output tax or sales transactions where tax is liable. Now GSTR2 is showing entire details of your purchases. That means inward supplies. Again, this return was to be filed monthly and the due date is 15th of the next month. So actually this return is still not in action, still not in operation, but there is a return called as GSTR2 where you're going to show your details of all your purchases made. Next, GSTR3 also is suspended. As of now, GSTR3 also is not in operation. That is, again, it is a monthly return on the basis of finalization of details of outward supplies monthly 20th of the next month. So what GSTR3 basically would do is give a monthly summary of the outward supplies made and inward supplies received and what is the input tax credit you are going to claim. And after getting the output and input tax, you would come to know what is the taxes to be paid to the government. And this return, GSTR3, was auto-generated. When I say auto-generated, what does it mean? You file GSTR 1, you show your sales. You file GSTR 2, you show your purchases. GSTR 3, that is the system, will auto generate GSTR 3 where it will minus the output tax and input tax, and it will show the net tax that you are liable to pay to the government. But as of now, this also is not in operation. So the due date of this was 20th of next month. So let us quickly just revise this. GSTR 1 will show your outward supplies. GSTR 2 inward supplies. GSTR 3 is an auto generated which shows a summary of outward and inward, and it will show the net tax payable to the government. All this is to be filed monthly. Due date of GSTR 1 is 11th of next month. GSTR 2 15th of next month. GSTR 3 20th of next month. Now, next is GSTR 3B. Now, GSTR 3B is nothing but, again, it is a monthly self-declaration return to be filed. It is a self-declaration, students, means in 3, it was auto-generated, right? But 3 is suspended. Now, and in 3B, what you have to do, you yourself have to show what is your outward supplies, what is your inward supplies, what is the input credit that you are availed, and what is the net payment you have to make to the government. So this GSTR 3B is nothing but a self declaration that you have to file, which will summarize the details. Summarize means you have to not give invoice wise details here. Individual bill details you need not give in 3B. You have to summarize the details of all outward supplies, input tax credit, and then you have to determine what is the tax liability and accordingly pay tax to the government. So 3B has to be filed with by everyone because 3B is the payment part. In 3B, you will come to know what is the tax that you have to pay to the government, and you have to pay the tax to the government under 3B. So this particular self-declaration is applicable to all the taxpayers registered under GST. So again, this is a monthly return, and it has to be, the due date is 20th of the next month. You have to file this particular return. Next we have this CMP 08. So this particular return is for the taxpayer registered under composition levy. Suppose if I am registered under composition levy, okay, I am supposed to file GSTR 4, which is also called as CMP 08. GSTR 4, which is also called as CMP 08. Okay, it has to be filed with the persons or taxpayers who have opted for composition scheme under GST. Everyone knows now what is composition scheme. Okay, now, and it has to be filed quarterly, students. Okay, not monthly. Composition levy, whoever is opted for composition levy, they have to file GSTR 4, which is now substituted by CMP 08. Okay, they have to file it quarterly, and the due date to file this return is 18th of the month succeeding quarter. So when the quarter completes, the next month up to 18th, the taxpayer can file this return. GSTR 5 is to be filed by non-resident foreign taxable person. So this particular return is to be filed by non-resident foreign taxpayers. I have told you who is non-resident foreign taxpayer, who is not a citizen of India, but he's carrying out occasionally business in India. So he's supposed to file returns. Government is supposed to know what is the sales, what is the purchases he's made. So he has to file which return? GSTR 5. Again, he has to file it monthly, and due date is 20th of the next month. GSTR 6 is to be filed by input service distributor. He has to show what is the turnover he is receiving from different states, what is the credit he is distributing to different states. Entire details should be given by him under return GSTR 6. Again, it is monthly, and the due date is 13th of the next month. Next, GSTR 7. It is required to be filed by persons who are required to deduct TDS, that is tax deducted at source, under GST. Okay, so again, this return is going to show what is the liability payable, the TDS refund to be claimed, if any. So that has to be shown by persons who are deducting TDS. That is again a monthly return. Due date is 10th of the next month. GSTR 8 is to be filed by e-commerce operators, okay, who are registered under the GST and who are required to collect tax collected at source. So e-commerce operators will collect the tax at source. So all the returns about it has to be shown in GSTR 8. Okay, again it has to be filed monthly by 10th of the next month. So let us quickly just understand. GSTR 1, 2, 3 is to be filed by normal taxpayers. When I say normal, means they are not under composition levy, or they are not under input service distributor, or they are not under a non-resident taxable person. Whoever is normal taxpayer, they have to file GSTR 1, 2, 3. 3B is to be filed by everyone because it is a payment part, and the remaining, that is GSTR 4, is to be is to be filed by person who has opted for composition levy. 5 is to be filed by non-resident taxable person. 6 by input service distributor. 7 by persons who are deducting tax as source, and 8 by the e-commerce operators. Next, 9. GSTR 9 is to be filed by is to be filed by a normal taxpayer to show his annual return. See students, monthly return we show in GSTR 1, 2 and 3, correct? But whatever sales you're making or whatever purchases you are making, this entire summary of year wise annual return, when we say, we do it only once a year. A complete detail will be shown in GSTR 9. So GSTR 9 is the annual return to be filed by the taxpayer who is registered under GST. And what this annual return will contain, it will contain the details of all the supplies, outward supplies made, inward supplies received, okay, then the taxes that you have paid under different heads, CGST, how much tax you have paid in the entire year, SGST, IGST, what are the HSN codes that you have returned, right? What are the taxes paid in the entire year? How much was actually payable? Okay, so in short, it is a consolidation of all the monthly returns like GSTR 1, 2A, 3B, whatever you have filed in the year. It is a consolidation of all these returns. And it has to be filed annually. Okay, and the due date is 31st December of the next financial year. So the due date is 31st December of the next financial year. So suppose for the financial year 2021, you're going to file the return in on 31st. The due date up to which you can file return is 31st December 2021. So for a particular financial year, to file the annual return, the due date will be the 31st of the next financial year, 31st December of the next financial year. Now 9A, GST 9A is an annual return that is to be filed by the taxpayer who have registered under the composition levy. So who is normal taxpayer? When I talk about, it means exception the composition scheme, whoever is opted for composition scheme, exception the input service distributor, exception the non-resident taxable persons, exception whoever is deducting TDS. Now, GSTR 9A is to be filed by the person who is registered under composition scheme. Again, it is an annual return showing a complete consolidation of all the quarterly returns that has been filed during that particular financial year. Again, the periodicity of filing this return is annually because it is an annual return, and the due date is 31st December of the next financial year. GSTR 10 is again a final return. Okay, when I say final return, means it is to be filed by a taxable person whose registration has been cancelled or surrendered. Okay, what do you mean? What does final return mean? Suppose I want to close down my business. Okay, I don't want to carry my business further, so I want to close down this business. So whatever GST registration certificate I had received when my turnover crosses the threshold limit, now since I'm no more carrying my business further, I will surrender my GST registration certificate, or my GST certificate will be cancelled, right? So when my GST certificate will be cancelled, whatever sales I have made during that particular period of cancellation, that I will show in the final return. Final return is my last return, okay, that I have to file. So once when the GST registration is cancelled or surrendered, so when are you going to file this return? When your GST registration is going to be cancelled or surrendered. What is the due date? Within 3 months of the date of cancellation or date of cancellation order, whichever is later. So your, suppose if you have received the order from your proper officer that your registration certificate has been cancelled, so from the date that you have received that order, within 3 months you have the time period to file your final return, where you're finally going to show whatever sales or purchases are remaining pending, okay, or are due. That is the last return, is your final return. Next, GST 11 is to be filed as a return to be filed by person who have issued the who have been issued the unique identity number. So this is nothing but details of inward supplies to be furnished by a person having UIN and claiming a refund. So if any person is being issued a UIN, so he is required to file the return, okay.
Hey guys, please wait for a few minutes since ma'am is connecting back to the class. Her laptop was got switched off, so she connected to the charge. So she requests all of you to wait for in the class.
So sorry, students, for the inconvenience. Actually, my battery got laptop battery was low, and due to which it had got closed down, shut down. So sorry for that. Now is the screen visible to everyone? Yes, students.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let us just continue with the same. GSTR1 is where you're going to show details of inward supplies to be furnished by a person having UIN and claiming a refund. Now, who is a UIN? UIN is nothing but a unique identification number. Now, this is given to a special class of GST registration, usually for foreign diplomatic missions and embassies. Okay, when these particular category of persons are giving UIN, okay, they are not liable to pay tax at all in Indian territory, and whatever amount of tax they are paying in the form of GST, maybe directly or indirectly, such amount will be refunded to them. Now, what amount should be refunded? How should the government understand? So government says that people who are having UIN should file GSTR 11, okay, and claim their refund in case if they are paid GST directly or indirectly. Okay, now who are usually the special class of people? They are nothing but specialized agency of United Nations organization or a multilateral financial institution that has been notified by the United Nations, or embassies of foreign countries, okay, or any other class that may be notified by the commissioner. So UIN is given to these particular foreign diplomatic embassies Okay, in case if they are paying any taxes in India, actually they're not liable to tax, but if they are paying, they can claim a refund by filing GSTR 11. Now they need to pay the file this return monthly, and the due date is 20th of the month following the month from which the statement is filed. Okay, so this is the different types of returns that we have seen under GST. So again, just revising this particular slide, GSTR 9 is annual return for normal taxpayer. 9A is again annual return for the persons who are opting for composition levy. GSTR 10 is final return. It needs to be filed only by those persons whose registration is cancelled. And GSTR 11 is to be filed only by those special category of people who is having this unique identity number for claiming the refund of the tax that they have paid. Next. Next is first return. Now let us understand what is first return. We have seen what is final return. When you are finally going to surrender or your registration is going to be cancelled, you're going to file the final return. Now what is first return under GST? Students, every person or every registered, not registered person, every person who becomes liable for registration, when he becomes liable for registration, once his turnover crosses the threshold limit. Correct. So once his turnover crosses the threshold limit, he can apply for registration. Now, what is the time period to apply for registration? Within 30 days, he is required to apply for registration from the date when his turnover crosses the threshold limit. Now, there can be a gap, students, or there can be a gap between he becoming liable for registration and grant of registration certificate. See students, today if I'm liable, suppose yesterday my turnover was suppose 19 lakhs. Okay, and today it has crossed 20 lakhs. So today I am liable the date when my turnover crosses the threshold. Now it becomes 20 lakhs and above. So today I'm liable for registration. So suppose today if I apply for registration, you all know the process of registration, right? So today if I apply for registration, will I get the registration certificate immediately? No, it will take a minimum period of 14 days. Suppose if clarification is required, 14 to 15 days time is there. So between this 14 to 15 days time from when I'm liable to when I've received the certificate, I may make certain sales, correct? I may make certain outward supplies. Okay, to that outward supplies, can I charge GST? I cannot charge because still I have not received the GST registration certificate, because in that GST registration certificate, my GST number will be there. So can I charge GST on this time lag that is between I becoming liable to file a return up and the grant of registration certificate? There is a time gap. So during this particular period, during this intervening period, whenever any person is making outward supplies, okay, then he needs to declare that. He needs to declare the taxable supplies made by him during this period from where he is liable to register till the date of registration certificate that he is receiving. And likewise also ITC he can avail on that period. So what he can do during this period, he can issue invoices and later he can revise those invoices by charging GST. So the return that is being filed for these invoices, that is the first return that he will be filing under GST. So what happens in this period is within 1 month of the date of issuance of the invoice, of the date of issuance of the registration certificate, he can revise the invoice, and those invoices, what he's revised, he can show it in the return. That is, will be his first return under GST. So what happens is the registered person shall declare all the outward supplies made during that particular period in the first return that is furnished, okay, to him after the grant of GST registration certificate. And the format of return will be the same as the regular returns format. There will be no change. So just remember, first return, what happens is when he is liable for registration and up to the grant of registration certificate by the proper officer, there is a time gap. Maximum you can take 14 to 15 days time gap is there. Between this time gap, if he's making any sales, he's actually required to charge GST since he's become liable. But since the GST certificate is received late, he can charge the bill without GST. Later, after receiving the GST certificate, he can revise those he can revise those invoices by charging the GST, and all the details of these invoices he can show it in the first return. So the registered person shall declare his outward supplies made during said period in the first return furnished by him after grant of registration. The format for this return is same as that for the regular return. So this is the first return that he is required to file under GST. Next. Just a second, students. Next is revision of returns. Now, once the returns have been filed, can it be revised? Suppose for a particular month, I am filing GSTR 1. And what happens is I miss out certain invoices to be added in the return. Suppose in the May month's return, I had suppose 40 sales made. That is 40 invoices. But out of 40, I have just returned 38. I have missed out 2. Or suppose one particular invoice, instead of writing it as 1 lakh rupees sale made, I've written 10,000. I missed out a 0. So suppose my return goes wrong in any particular month. Maybe I've missed out certain invoices. Maybe I've written wrong amounts. Anything. So can I revise that return for May month? Once May month's return I've already filed, but it's gone wrong. Can I revise those returns? So under GST, you cannot revise those returns. Once May month return is filed, it is filed. It is finally submitted. You cannot change May month's return, but you can make the changes for that particular invoice in the succeeding month's return. That is, when I'm going to file June month's return, I can make the changes in the invoice relating to May month. But May month's return, I cannot make any changes once I have filed it. So the mechanism of filing revised returns for any correction of errors or omission has been done away with. So done away with means you cannot revise the returns. The rectification of errors or omission is allowed in the subsequent returns. Subsequent return means in the next return that you're going to file, you can rectify the error, but you cannot change the return once it is submitted. However, no rectification is allowed after furnishing the return for the month of September following the end of financial year to which such details stand. What does this mean? That you're allowed to change the details of any particular month's return in the succeeding month's return, but this also is allowed only up to September of the next financial year. After September, you cannot make any changes in any return that is relating to a particular current financial year. You can make the changes in any return of any current month in the subsequent month's return, but that also is allowed only up to end of September month's return in the succeeding financial year. So in short, revision of returns is not allowed. You cannot revise a month's return once it is already submitted, but you can make any alteration or changes in the subsequent month's return that you are filing. Right? Now, this also is allowed only up to September of the next financial year. Is revision of returns clear to all students? Yes? Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
students? Okay, next. Penalty late fee levied for delay in filing returns. See, students, we have seen what is the due date of filing returns. Like for GSTR 1, it is 11. For GSTR 3B, it is 20th. Now, what if a taxpayer crosses that particular due date and files the return? Due date is a last date. Now, what if a particular taxpayer is not filing on the due date, he is filing after the due date? So if is filing any returns after the due date, government will charge late fee on him, will charge penalty on him. So returns filing is mandatory under GST. Even if there is no transaction, you must file nil return. Suppose in a particular month, a taxpayer has not made any sales. Still, he has to file the return by showing zero, by showing entire sales as zero and filing the return. So, return is mandatory to be filed under GST. You cannot file a return if you do not file previous month's return, months or quarters return. Suppose if I have not filed May month's return and I'm directly filing June month's return, I am not allowed. You have to go in order. If you have not filed May month's return, you cannot file June month's return unless and until you file May month's return. So it has to go in order. You cannot skip May month and then file June month's return. You cannot skip any month's return and go to the next to filing of next month's return. You have to file first the return of the previous month, then only you will be allowed to file the return of the subsequent month. Next, hence, late filing of GST returns will have a cascading effect leading to heavy fine and penalty. As I already told you all, if the returns is not filed within the due date, government will charge you penalty and late fees. Next, the late filing of GSTR1 is populated in liability ledger of 3B filed immediately after such delay. So 3B, as I told you, will show you the net tax payable. Okay, net tax payable, and it is an auto generated. So suppose if you are making 3B is to be filed on 20th of the next month, GSTR1 is to be filed by 11th of the next month, correct? Now suppose if you have done late in filing GSTR1 return, the late fee will show by itself in GSTR3B. Means the system will auto populate the late fee in GSTR3B, because GSTR3B is a particular self declaration, it's a particular form where the system will tell you what is the amount that you're supposed to pay in respect of late fee. So late fee will directly be populated in the liability ledger of 3B. Next, let us know what is this amount of late fee. Let us know how much is charged. So students, suppose any registered person, now I'm talking any registered person means who is liable to be, who is registered under GST, and he fails to furnish some returns by the due dates. Now, which are the returns? Returns statements of outward supply. Outward supplies means if he fails to show GSTR1. Okay, and all the returns that we have seen under section 39, the different types of returns that we have seen under section 39, the final return. So any return, if the taxpayer is failing to file within the due date, he is liable for late fee. Let us see the quantum of late fee. If he is failing to file the return, which I have told that is regarding outward supplies, regarding the returns we have seen under section 39, regarding the final return, if he is making any delay, the quantum of late fee is 100 for every day during which failure continues, or rupees 5,000 whichever is lower. So 100 every day. Suppose my due date was 20th and I have filed a return on 25th. So it will be 5 days, 500 rupees. So after 20th, the number of days, each day I have to calculate as rupees 100. Up to which failure continues means 100 every day after the due date. Up to the date he is going to file the return, or rupees 5,000 whichever is lower. Now, suppose if a registered person is fails to furnish the annual return within due date. Annual return we have seen GSTR 9. Annual return is a summary of the monthly returns that is supposed to file once a year, that is 31st December of the next financial year. So for annual return, the late fee is different. For annual return, the late fee is 100 for every day during which failure continues, or 0.25% of the turnover of registered person in the state or union territory, whichever is lower. So for annual return, students, it is 100 every day or 0.25% of the turnover of that particular registered person. Whichever is lower is going to be the late fee that is going to be charged in delay in filing the annual return. Exception annual return, if there is any delay, this is the particular quantum of late fee that is charged, that is 100 every day during which failure continues, or rupees 5,000 whichever is lower. So this was about late fee penalty levied for delay in filing the returns. So thank